Geary Avenue is a very special street. I don't think there's anything like it in the city. It's one of the most unique streets in Toronto in terms of how mixed it is in its use. Geary has such a long history of housing artists, both residentially and in studios. We chose to apply for the Main Street Innovation Fund in order to try to bring affordable and accessible studio space to artists here on Geary Avenue. Without that grant, this wouldn't have been possible because we just simply didn't have the capital to undertake a project like this. With that grant, we purchased the container itself, we did all the renovations, and it also is covering artist fees. So we're actually creating a residency program, and it's able to actually give funds to the artists for showing their work here and also give them like a completely functional studio space free of charge. We kind of conceived of this project as a way to really highlight the fact that affordable and accessible space for artists is just disappearing. A spot that might previously just have housed a car for parking can actually bring so much more value to the neighborhood.
I have like a 1-month residency here that starts today, so I get to have my artwork here, I get to create here. So it's a good way to get my artwork out there as well as have me have like a bigger space where I can create some bigger pieces. It gives artists a chance to showcase their work, like because it's out on the street, people will be able to see what people are doing as they're creating. And it just gives us a visibility factor that we don't necessarily have. It just gives us an option to be able to put ourselves out there without any like stipulations.
I would definitely recommend to give a shot with the Main Street Innovation Fund. We've been very lucky to have been selected this year, and this project wouldn't have been possible without it.